Hi, my name is Ronald Bartels. I'm from Fusion Broadband. Fusion Broadband is an award-winning SD-WAN solution. It won the IBM Beacon Award for Outstanding Infrastructure Services Solution. Many SD-WAN products have got quite a lot of attributes. I'm going to speak specifically about name resolution. Now, before you actually connect to the internet, the first thing that gets done is it tries to work out what the IP address is, and that's a process called DNS. Many product sets don't actually concentrate a lot on DNS, but when you look at it, if your DNS isn't working, you're not going to get internet. So your DNS needs to be rock solid. So how at Fusion do we actually make DNS rock solid? Well, firstly, a lot of people utilize their ISP's DNS. It's not necessarily always a good thing. The first thing about it is that it's not really that secure. An ISP's DNS resolves to anything, and that includes malware sites. So what I typically do is use something from Quad 9. Now, Quad 9 is a DNS service that is sponsored by IBM. Now, what they do is they block all lookups to malicious sites automatically. Now, what this means is that you are immediately more secure. Quad 9 isn't the only one. So there are these two IP addresses that are available, but the alternative that also exists is something called Cloudflare that have got an IP address of 1.1.1.2 that does exactly the same as Quad 9. So what a person would do to get rock solid DNS is rely on not one DNS server like you always do, but maybe 2 or 3. The second thing is that normal domain name resolution, you typically only ever utilize one IP address at a time. When you use one IP address at a time, what you end up doing is when that IP address fails and your operating system has a secondary one, there's a timeout of a minimum of 5 seconds, depending upon how it's configured, before you get to the next one. So you actually do lose connectivity to the internet. At that moment in time, the normal user doesn't know whether the internet has failed, whether the last mile has failed, whether the host that they're connecting to has failed. They don't even think maybe that the DNS has failed. So we now go to the actual next step. How do you do it with Fusion Broadband? Well, it's typically relatively simple. Fusion Broadband has a DNS service. And in the DNS service, we enable a configuration, which we typically refer to as 5 nines. So you implement 3 servers. And here I've implemented Quad 9 at 9.9.9.9. I've implemented the secondary one at 149.112.112.112, and I've implemented Cloudflare at 1.1.1.2. And what I've done in this configuration is that when you look for a name, the immediate thing that it does is it sends a query to each of those 3 servers, and it utilizes the fastest one. What that means is 2 things. If one of the servers failed, you're still going to get an answer from the other one. The other thing is that you're going to get constantly the best performance, because not all DNS always responds at the same time. They vary. One is sometimes always faster than the other, and that's how the internet works. So with this particular, you're going to have a very reliable connection for name resolution, and you're also going to have a very fast one. The next thing that you can actually then do is do a local cache for DNS. What this basically means is that the hard disk of the SD-WAN device, which is a SD-WAN appliance, has got an SSD. And on that SSD, it caches a couple of hundred names that have been utilized in the last couple of seconds. So when you do multiple queries to the same website, instead of it going out onto the internet, it just resolves it locally at a very high speed. And that effectively is how you get it. So how do you make certain that your users always utilize your SD-WAN instead of some other DNS site? So what you can do on this Fusion product is make certain that all your name resolution goes towards your local caching site, which uses the DNS servers that's been configured on it and the method that's been configured for it, by forcing all DNS queries to it. So for example, if your user was going to go and configure something like Google and use the Google website as a name DNS server, which is 8.8.8.8, it will be redirected to your local caching DNS, and that local caching DNS will send out the requests to the upstream DNSs and use the fastest one. So effectively, the DNS becomes rock solid and never breaks.